Welcome to VLearn Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 11 of Personnel Administration and the topic is Central and State Training Institutes. Topics to be covered are role of training, types of training, central training institutes, state training institutes, function of state training institutes, making state training institute a nodal agency for training in the state, and the last one is conclusion. Now come to the first topic, that is role of training. So training is an important input for human resource development. It can be viewed as a reciprocal process of teaching and learning, a way of acquiring knowledge and related methods of work. It lays emphasis on the critical significance and value of human asset, which given the required orientation and knowledge can be more lasting than the other asset like physical, fiscal, etc., which depreciate over a period of time. The inadequacy in personnel is directly related to the insufficiency of the training, which in a comprehensive sense is the real remedy for augmenting manpower resources in public administration. The most practical and effective way to overcome this shortage is not by increasing the number of people in the organization, but by instituting programs of training to make available as quickly as possible the skilled and knowledge personnel. The objective is to make the available personnel functionally more useful, professionally more purposeful, better equipped and more relevant by creating newer capabilities. Training has indeed everything to do with these peoples in the organization, their weakness, inadequacies, changing of their attitudes, or to say briefly, their entire life in the world of work. Making them effective employees, perhaps better persons, aiming at the same time a brighter future for the organization. Now, training is the process of inculcating in the employees appropriate habits of thoughts and actions and development of necessary skills, knowledge and attitudes. The ultimate objective of training is to enable employees to become effective in their present and future tasks. Now, different roles of training. First one is training as a basic input for performance. It is not enough to merely recruit qualified persons in government services. It is essential to train them towards the various goals and objectives of the organization to which they belong and to provide them technical, conceptual and human skills for performance of different activities. If training is not imparted, perhaps such skills would be acquired partially by trial and error or by the application of the rule of thumb, and in some cases after committing several mistakes which might prove to be detrimental to the organization as well as the public interest. Second, training as an aid to attitudinal change. Training enables entrants in the government service to become familiar with the specific objectives of their work in the organization. It also makes them feel that they have a certain contribution to make towards the society through their work. Therefore, training generates in them an awareness of the role and importance of their work. Training also enables a person to develop the right attitude towards time and cost and thereby a sense of urgency in the disposal of work. It is again very helpful in developing the right work ethic and concern for the citizens and enables a person to appreciate a system's approach towards the work and thereby motivates him/her to cooperate with others in the performance of work. Third, training as an aid to increase productivity. Training develops proficiency in a specific work. This builds up confidence in the personnel and thereby increase their interest and capabilities in the performance of tasks. In other words, training develops the personality of the employees and attunes to the requirements of work and thus increase productivity, organizational effectiveness and efficiency. Training as an important tool in the context of implementation of development plans. The need for training is all the more important in the present context of complex nature of work, larger in magnitude and multidisciplinary in character. the implementation of plans and programs for socio-economic development of nation, alleviations of poverty in the rural and urban areas, and generation of employment to meet the demand of raising population requires considerable amount of involvement of personnel working in the government departments in terms of time and attention and appropriate skills. In the meeting the goal of development administration, training has a very important role of not only providing knowledge for personal development and work skills but also changing their attitudes and values. So training as a learning process has to be continuous because the need of development and modernization cannot be met by the training of personnel at a single point of time. Now, types of training. Each training institute is unique as it confines itself to the specific problems and priorities of an area or field. Also, it has its own clientele of or target group that has to be trained and there determines the scope of operations of the institution. So, first one is foundational training. The fresh recruiters to the civil services who after successfully completing in the civil service examination join the services need to be imparted some similar uncommon trainings. The basic objective of this training is that irrespective of the educational disciplines from which the civil servants come, they should be exposed to the basic of administration, fundamental of the country's socio-economic realities, political environment, government's ideology and overall system of interrelationships, interdependencies between the different organs, agencies of the government, between citizens and administration, etc. The idea is also that they should develop camaraderies and civil service comradeship which will prove helpful in their later careers when they work together in the various departments of the Government of India. This sort of training is considered on-campus training when it is organized in one campus under the same atmosphere, in the same surroundings, to give them an idea of common living. Second, on entry training, the training which can also be termed post-entry training may take various forms: orientation, induction on the job, etc. This on-entry training is to be distinguished from later career programs or in-service training which is given to the employees during their mid-careers or maturation stage, that is at the higher senior career stage. So this in-service training about which you will study later maybe take various forms like refresher trainings, retraining, managerial training, etc. The on-entry training can be divided into the following phases. First one is orientation, like it provides a general introduction of a public employment usually during the first few days or weeks of the service. Second, induction. Induction training, which is also a sort of post-entry training, goes beyond orientation and involves instructions regarding the performance of the task related to particular position of duties of certain grades in a cadre or service. Induction training has a specific job-centered focus and includes usually weeks or months of formal instruction soon after the initial appointments. The primary object of this is to accelerate the learning process of the individuals about the basic of work, its content, procedures, rules and regulations, etc. On-the-job training. This type of training is based on premises that a person's best learning take place on the job. This relates to learning while working through trial and error methods or informal practical introduction to the job or under the guidance of the first line supervisor or other senior experienced persons in the organization. Thus, is purely job centered, that is training related to nature of work and the place of work. Last one is in-service training. In-service training is the training imparted to the employees in their mid-career and at the later stage in their service. Hence, it is known as mid-career training. Staff development is a continuous process and it is an important factor contributing to organizational effectiveness. The fundamental assumptions behind in-service training is that since the basic or initial training imparted to the employees at the time of joining is not sufficient for their whole career, there is a need for inducting in them new knowledge, skills, better attitudinal and behavioral pattern, which would enable them to face the rapidly changing technological and administrative environment, and it stresses on the development of coherent thinking and problem-solving ability, which enhances their performance level. Now, these are the explanation of foundational training. The fresh recruitments to civil service who after successfully completing in the civil services examination join the service and need to be imparted some similar and common training, which I already explained. This sort of foundational training is also concerned with professional aspects of personal development. It is concerned with the generation of skills, promotion of specific competence and improvement of particular job-centered efficiency. Now, foundational training related to professional tasks for the first inductees emphasis besides showing improved ways of doing things and new technical know-how of work, the social cultural dynamics of a particular service. Now, on entry training, it is divided into various parts. That is, first one is orientation. It provides a general introduction to public employment, usually during the first few days or weeks of the services. Induction training, which is also a sort of post-entry training, goes beyond orientation and involves instruction. On-the-job training, that is, this type of training is based on the premises that a person's best learning take place on the job, which is given to you or provide you on the job. In-service training is a training imparted to the employees in their mid-career or at a later stage in their service. Staff development is a continuous process and it is an important factor contributing to organizational effectiveness. So it stresses on the development of coherent thinking and problem-solving ability. A conference on issue and in-service training organized by the training divisions of the Department of Personnel. Government of India in 1981 observed that in many organizations, the in-service training is sought to achieve the following objective. That why we provide on in-service training. The main objective is to maintain the present standard of the performance, कि आज आपकी क्या परफॉर्मेंस है उसको इम्प्रूव करने के लिए. सेकेंड इज टू इम्प्रूव द प्रेजेंट स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ द परफॉर्मेंस. सेम. Next, to give the employees new skills necessary to meet challenging job requirements, to enable the employees to perform jobs at higher levels as they rise in the hierarchy. Refresher courses. The basic objective of such course is to enable them to refresh their knowledge and skills which they had learned in their early careers, or to renew, sharpen their skills, or to know certain new things with which the employees being immersed in the daily routine have not been able to keep in touch. In 1985, the Ministry of Personnel, Training, Administrative Reforms, Public Grievances, Pension and Pensioners' Welfare made it mandatory for all IAS officers of junior, middle and senior levels to attempt 1 week refreshment course. Now, retraining, a somewhat different thought to an extent allied concept of training is available in retraining, which would include instruction in a new field of specialization or at least an extensive training in the old field of specialization. Ordinarily, retraining is imparted when an employee or a group of employees is to be assigned new tasks or expanded duties of such magnitudes as to constitute almost a new work assignment. Management training. Management training is a relative new and interesting development in the area of personnel's management in general and in field of training in particular. It may cover all training above the superiority level. The specific typology of this training is found in Executive Development Program, that is EDPs, and Management Development Programs, MDPs. These programs are meant for Group A officers of all India Central Services. The Executive Development Program is of 6 weeks duration and intended for officers with 6 to 10 year service in Group A, while the Management Development Program is of 4 weeks duration and is means for all India and Central Service Group A with 11 to 15 year of service. It is true that their job does not basically involve the practice of any particular specialization. It mainly involves policy formulation and rendering of advice, but to make their outlook. Now, central training. In India, training for public services has been a long established practice, with some training institutes which had been in existence during pre-independence days at the time of East India Company. The need for training was felt to improve the quality of civil servants, and therefore it becomes an integral part of the personal policies of the government. The Administrative Reforms Commission was of the view that training is an investment in human resource. It is an important means of improving human potential and increase the efficiency of personnel. So, training, the Commission felt, was necessary immediately on induction to the service, and after some years of experience, a person must receive training to suit the specific needs of one particular field. The training institutes, besides conducting their own technical and professional programs, organize short duration mid-career courses like MDP, EDP, MIGP depending on seniority groupings of the trainees. The training institutes manage these programs partly through their own faculty and partly through guest faculty invited from outside for their specialization, expertise and experience in the specific areas of work. State training institutes. The state civil service functioning at the intermediate level constitutes an important component to the civil services in India. The new task of government calls for increasing degree of specialization, modern management skills and techniques, and also understanding the commitments on the part of personnel to perform the tasks. The need for imparting institutional and on-the-job training to civil servants at various levels in the state has been emphasized by different administrative reforms committees. The need for formal and institutional training for civil servants was also clearly recognized by the Administrative Reforms Commission and its study team on state-level administration. There are about 21 STIs. Some of the important ones are Institute of Administration, that is in Hyderabad, Sardar Patel Institute in Public Administration, Haryana Institute of Public Administration, it is in Chandigarh, Himachal Pradesh Institute of Public Administration, Institutes of Management in Government, Trivandrum. Functions of state institutes, training institutes. The main functions are provide training to officers of all India service allotted to the state with a view to acquainting them with the socio-economic, cultural and historical background of the state, conducts courses for officers of the all India services and the state services which are sponsored by the various concerned ministries of the Government of India. Organizes foundation courses for officers of the state civil services with a view to foster a spirit of camaraderie in them and to orient them to common basic values of the administrative system of the state. Organizes induction courses for directly recruited officers of the state administrative services and such other services which do not have induction training facilities in their concerned departments. Conduct refresher and in-service training courses for officers of the state government in specific areas of interest. Organizes programs for training of trainers of the departments and other training institutes in the state. Ensure that appropriate and adequate training is imparted to officials of all the departments at all stages and at suitable intervals, all at department and other institutions, and coordinate all such activities in the state. Now, making state training institution. The state training institutions as the apex or nodal state level institution has a very important role to play in the training of personnel in the state. The main role of this institution is to not only organize induction, refreshers, in-service training programs for the main services of the state, but also to assess the training needs of officers at different levels of all the departments. organizations at the state and provide necessary training programs. Important aspect is the training of trainers of the institute, as the quality of trainers determines the impact of the training programs. The trainers need to be exposed to field research work where they are confronted with real life problems faced by the trainees and encouraged to develop case studies for discussion during training programs. Now there are some questions on the basis of this session. First one is discuss the significance of foundational training. Second is discuss the function of state training institutes. That's it for this session. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.